But we're set for the event, right? We're set for the
Yep.
Jake and Gino event. Good to go. Flights are set. We're ready to roll on that. So that's good. All right. Let's do meeting minutes so we can do that segment real quick. That's what I had next on my thing. You good?
Okay. Yes.
All right, cool. So, hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is our meeting minutes segment where we seek to answer questions from the groups or talk about topics that we think are relevant for all the different multifamily and more groups. So, Jamie Gruber, this is Benoit Malige. Say hi, Ben.
Hi.
That's Ben.
What's up, Jamie?
Not too much. So today we're going to talk about a question that comes up quite a bit, or even maybe not a question, but like a statement that people make as to why they join our communities. And that is, hey, I'm in the single family investing space, 1, 2, 3, 4 unit, and I want to move over to that commercial multifamily space. So I want to learn about that. So what I thought we would do, or we thought we would do, is talk about maybe some of the key differences at a high level, and then we can direct you to some other content that can get a little deeper on that. But that's the goal of today's meeting minutes. So I got 3 things that I think are really good. The first 3 things that I think of that start to get at what the difference is that we could talk about. So Ben, are you ready to dive in?
Sure.
All right. So the first thing in my mind is valuation. And that really comes down to cap rates or capitalization rates versus comps. So very quickly, a cap rate is essentially the expected rate of return that you would get if you were to buy a property cash. So if you see this property is trading at a 7 cap or an 8 cap or a 6 cap, it means that for a 7 cap, if you paid cash, you get a 7% return on that investment. Cap rates and NOI, that formula together, they make up the value of multifamily. You can do comps, and there is a comp formula for appraisers of multifamily, but mostly it's your net operating income and your cap rate. Those 2 together make up your valuation for a property. We've got a lot more on this. If you watch Phil Capron's interview in the expert series on our YouTube channel, we go deep on cap rates. So if you want to learn more about that, go for it. But that's one change, because in the single 2, 3, 4 family house space, it's really comps. Like, how much did single family sell for up the street with similar square footage? That's the difference between valuation in the multifamily and the kind of the single family space. Ben, give me a little more on that if you have.
Difference between residential and commercial, I would call it. And I would even say before, I would just say the difference in valuation is the comp approach versus the income approach.
Why do you gotta be so succinct?
Well, because it's more accurate. Excuse me.
He just walks away with his more accurate mic drop.
I need to take some notes on what you're not doing properly now, so I can hold you accountable.
I love it. This is getting contentious here. I like it. Good point, Ben. But I'll challenge you on this. Residential, multifamily, a lot of people still say residential commercial, right? Silence. That's part 1. The valuation difference between commercial and residential, or multifamily, single family, whatever you want to define it as, is exactly that.
You also have multifamily residential, so it's still confusing, I think. So I would say 1 to 4 units and 5 units and above.
Fair enough. That's a good point, because up to 4 units you would finance kind of like with your traditional, if you buy a house kind of financing, whereas 5 and up, now you're in the commercial lending space. So that's better. That's better. We got there. Second thing is dealing with brokers versus agents. And Ben, I'm going to let you talk about this a little bit. So what is the difference if you're buying a single family 2, 3, 4, the residential agent, if you will, versus the commercial broker or multifamily broker? What's the difference?
Well, they're a different breed of people, first of all. No, but I would say.
Oh, Ben, you can't hear. It's just something happened.
How's it?
It's kind of quiet.
Still quiet?
Oh, that's better.
Okay. On the residential side, or the 1 to 4 units, usually the properties are listed on the MLS, and you have two sets of agents, one agent representing the buyer, one agent representing the seller. So that's just, that's how it works. On the commercial side of things, typically we see a broker representing both, right? Or representing the sale of a commercial property. So it's very, very different where, I mean, everything changes from that point because you don't, sorry, there's a lot of noise around me. Can you hear the,
Just very, very little. It's okay. I can hear you still.
um, yeah, so it's a different approach to, talking to them. It's much more business. Um, but, help me out on this.
Yeah, brokers don't play with each other for the most part, right? On the commercial side, they
Well,
really don't.
for us, like it was, kind of difficult to get brokers to talk to us seriously because we had no business experience in the multifamily space.
You got it.
Although we had a good-looking business plan, we didn't get much out of them in terms of deals.
Right. Brokers are looking for credibility on the commercial side, whereas a retail agent or a residential or a 1, 2, 3, 4 family agent that most people deal with on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, like Ben said, seller's agent, buyer's agent. Yeah, they interact. In fact, if you have one on both sides of the deal, they make you sign a dual agency like acknowledgement. This way, you know that you're as the buyer being represented by the same agent as the seller. In the commercial space, in the multifamily space, the 5+ space, one, brokers are they're going to a short buyers list, so they're not as easy to access as a residential agent or a 1, 2, 3, 4 family agent. And two, they really are, usually you're just dealing with the broker on the deal. You're not like, hey, this is my broker, go deal with that broker. The less brokers involved, it seems, is I don't want to say the better, but it's the more common sort of approach that at least we've seen. So that's a big difference, is dealing with agents and brokers is different.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult if you, I mean, it could be a great deal, but the instance we had on one of the first deal we looked at and put an offer on was a residential real estate agent listing a commercial property. And that's why I started this by saying that, there were a different breed of people. It's just a different job.
Yeah.
So, it's there's specificities, there's a lot more numbers, and we talked about the difference in valuation, understanding why a property is worth that much, a commercial property, because it's based on the income and expense approach versus, this property sold for this much, so this one has to be similar to that. We had an instance where we explained our numbers and our offer and the residential agent did not understand where we were coming from.
Right. That's so true. I was going to say that, like a residential agent, when you make an offer that's quote unquote lowball, they act like a residential agent where it's like, oh, my buyer will never, right? Or my seller, I should say, will never. Whereas the commercial broker, when you say, hey, here's how I came to my valuation, they're like, hey, listen, I understand. I get how you got there. Let's work with this. Here's a factor, or whatever the case may be. And sometimes they'll say, yeah, listen, I know how you got to your number, but we're just going to have to agree. He's going to, the seller is not going to agree to that. So just a heads up, but certainly you can submit the offer, and it's just it seems less personal. Maybe that's just us, but so that's two. The third thing that's different between commercial or multifamily in the space of 5+ units versus 4 and under is how these deals are financed. And that's really the crux of why we keep making this distinction between 1 to 4 unit versus 5+ unit is the financing. I mean, that's really what it boils down to, right? So do you want to give a quick overview, or do you want me to dive in on this one to start?
You can go ahead.
All right. So financing, I would say, let's talk about what people typically know. Go to the bank, 30-year amortization or 15, depending on what you want to do. There's an interest rate, you've got the whole 30 years to pay that off or 15 years to pay that off. And you put 20% down or 10%, or different programs are 5 or 3.5% down. Everybody knows about kind of the residential, regular buying of a property. When you get 5+, you get into the commercial space. And what you'll deal with are a few terms there. One is amortization. So amortization, like I said, is 30 years on usually 30 years on a regular house that you buy. In the 5+ space, the amortization could be 30, but often it's 20 or 25 years. So you would take your payment and stretch it over 20 or 25 years, sometimes 30, and without getting too specific. It depends on your track record. It depends on the product, depends on the size of the property, so on and so forth. The second thing you have to learn in the commercial space is something called the term. So you have your amortization, which is 25 years, but you don't get 25 years to pay that off. The term is, say, 5, 7, 10, maybe even 3 years. What that means is while your payment is based on this 25-year or 20 or 30-year amortization table, the payment is due, the whole thing, the whole loan is due in full at the end of the term, 3, 5, 7, or 10 years, right? So you negotiate this with your commercial loan broker to figure out, what kind of term you want to get. And that the longer the term, it may impact interest rates, all of that good stuff. Interest rates are about the same. I mean, meaning like interest rates are handled, like interest rate. You just, you shop it around and get what you get. But those are kind of two of the big things I think that really jump out to me. The other thing I would say is that in the commercial or the 5+ space, the asset itself is what's being analyzed versus, say, your credit, right? Like, not that your credit doesn't matter, but you can bring in, on the commercial side, the 5+ unit, you can bring in people to make up whatever gaps you don't have. So if you don't have the credit, you can bring in a partner that does. If you don't have the net worth, you can bring in a partner that does. If you don't have the experience, you can bring in a partner that does in order to get the deal done and be part of that deal. Whereas you buy a house, it's usually just what's your credit rating. That'll determine what kind of terms you get from a bank. So those are kind of the big pieces I thought, Ben. I don't know if you want to expand on any of those or clarify. If I said something wrong again.
I think that was very clear. And then I would just add something when you talked about bringing partners to the deal to help close the deal. This can also be like property managers. I know that for our first property we had, are you guys going to be self-managing, and do you have experience in that? We had, it would have been easier if we brought in a professional management company with a track record, like even that helps. So there's much more things to play with than just what you earn, what your salary is, and your credit score is on the residential side.
Yeah, and we're talking probably to people that invest in single and double, 1, 2, 3, 4 family homes that are looking to jump to the commercial multifamily space. So the beauty of that is, like, it's not that experience you probably have. If you're self-managing your portfolio now, you're able to leverage that to go into this space. And, you could just see where on the commercial financing space, there are so many other variables that matter: net worth, experience, all of that. It's so much more of a people thing, where I feel like on the residential side, it's really like, this is our product. What's your credit score? We fit you in this box. This is what we offer to people that look like you. That's it. Commercial is so different. You can negotiate term, that 3, 5, 7, 10. You can negotiate amortization, maybe even interest rate, depending on what kind of term or amortization you're asking for. You can negotiate down payment. Some that may say we 70-30 is what we offer. You can get up to 80%, so commercial is much more variable, which is why building your team and networking are huge, are big pieces of building your commercial multifamily empire, if you will. So that's what I got, Ben. Cap rate versus comps. So valuation method is very different between the two. Brokers and agents are different, and how you finance commercial versus residential, or 4 and under versus 5 up. Those are the differences I got. What do you think?
I think we're good.
Good stuff. Well, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Drop some comments in. We'd love to hear from you. Like it, subscribe, hit the notification bell. We want as many people as we can getting into this community and getting the value of this content. And let us know. Let us know if there's some topics you'd like us to talk about, and we would be happy to, or bring in some experts if we don't know the answers to those things. So thanks again. Hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you soon. Say bye, Ben.
Later.
All right. See ya.